We're excited to announce that our very own podcasting platform, Zencastr, has become a new sponsor to the show. Check out the podcast's discount link in our show notes and stay tuned for why we love using Zen for the podcast.
You're listening to the Archaeology Podcast Network.
Everybody, welcome to another episode of ArchaeoAnimals, the podcast all about zooarchaeology. I'm Alex Fitzpatrick, and with me as always,
Simona Palanga.
And today we are talking about cryptozoology. We did do an episode on cryptozoology with the Fab Archaeological Fantasies podcast way back. I don't know, feels like a decade now.
Yeah, I think it's episode 5. So we're like nearly going on 2 years ago now.
Yeah, so like a decade in today time.
For all intents and purposes.
It's like a century, basically.
Why not a millennia?
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
That episode is archaeology in itself.
Yeah, no, exactly. But yeah, so today, it's going to be part refresher, part new look at cryptozoology via loads and loads of case studies. And we are specifically going to look at 3 types of cryptids. So we'll be looking at unicorns. We'll be looking at Bigfoot. What's the plural of a Bigfoot? Sasquatches.
Yes.
It came to me.
Large humanoid cryptids.
Yes. And mermaids. So it should be good. I'm always down to talk about stuff that doesn't exist, or maybe does exist. Who knows? No judgment. All right. So should we start, I guess, with unicorns then?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, one thing that'll be worth mentioning as well is that we've chosen sort of 3 cryptids that are fairly well known, but please do flood our inbox with weird and wonderful cryptids because we don't want to stop making episodes like this. So it doesn't have to be a 1-parter or a 2-parter. It can be a 10-parter.
I mean, we could do a whole podcast about cryptids, and people have, let's be real, but it's just fun. It's just so much fun. I mean, I was thinking about this the other day because me and my partner were watching videos of roadside attractions in America because that's how I get my fill of the country. I was just thinking about how, like, if I didn't have any integrity, which is, it might happen soon, I might just like give up and go and pretend to be like a cryptozoologist and like open up a little museum and like go full cryptozoologist. Seems like more fun at this point.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. We should make one here in the UK.
I'm sure there are. I mean, there might be.
It's definitely not as much as in the States, which we will talk about because, I don't know, I guess it's part of that like Americana roadside oddities culture.
Yeah, because it is in a way, because there's a lot more. Well, it's not that there are a lot more cryptids in North America, but there seems to be a lot more mythos that are quite recent. While sort of around here, we do have our cryptids, but they tend to mostly be sort of legends from yesteryear.
Yeah, that's true. Actually,
wait. What about Nessie? Come on, Nessie is no. I want to break this up. No, the UK has literally some of the highest tier cryptids all around. Think about it, Nessie, top of the list.
That wasn't my point. Mostly saying that there are none that are sort of very recent in the way they've come about.
Okay, well, I mean, what about the unicorn being the national animal of Scotland? It's pretty like close to now. It still is the national animal of Scotland.
Yeah, but in terms of like the origins of the unicorn as a cryptid, so they stretch back quite a bit further back. Because like in the UK, you have plenty of cryptids from the Owlman and the fairies, and I'll come back about that. But there's a fair amount, but not as many that have come into being so to speak, so relatively recently. I think the only one I can think of is the alien big cats.
Oh yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, no, I mean those were really, really popular in like the late 90s. I remember watching lots of TV shows with alien big cats kicking around.
Although to be fair, you would have genuinely had the odd ones. I remember reading in the news only a couple of years ago that in the southwest of England there was a clouded leopard on the loose. It turned out it was somebody's. Like, oh yeah, no, I've got 2 of those. No, that's mine.
Oh, could you imagine like a tiger king, but like in the south of England?
Oh no.
Oh, could you imagine like Joe Exotic, but like from the home counties, and like has. It was so good. Oh, I can't wait to see it. Yeah. Snow Leopard King.
I don't know, because I've not actually watched Tiger King, so
Neither have I.
I've only, from the few sort of snippets of memes that I've seen on the internet, but other than that, it's all pretty obscure to me.
Okay, well, I'm the only person who's seen it, but yeah. No, that sounds pretty cool. I want the UK Tiger King or Leopard King to be made. But I think maybe what you're right in saying that there's not many old new cryptids in the UK is probably because of the relative age of like the US. And I also think the distances involved, like, I don't know, I just feel like North America is quite spread out. And so, I don't know, there's a lot of room to be by yourself, if that makes sense. Like, you know, the world makes weird noises, especially out in the forest late at night. It's just you.
I mean, I think it's also the diversity of how many different, like, regional cultures developed in the States, from, you know, as far as it being various indigenous nations and then going on to it being colonized and stuff like that. So you have so much to draw from to create these kind of cryptids and folklore and things like that. And like you said, like size as well, I think has a lot to do for it. There's so much space you can move between that you can, you know, oh, this is where, you know, Mothman lives, or the Jersey Devil, or a hometown cryptid of mine, the Montauk Monster. So that's fun. Anyway, we were supposed to talk about unicorns now.
Yes, look, just quickly, the one I was thinking of was the Piskies. Is another English cryptid, namely of Cornwall, mostly.
Oh, okay.
Unicorn.
Anyway, yeah, unicorns. What are unicorns? They're horses. They have a horn. Sometimes they're plain. Sometimes they're rainbow. Sometimes they're sparkly. Sometimes they're
very sparkly. Sometimes they're very sparkly. The sparklier, the better.
Yes. So yeah, I think we covered unicorns now.
Moving on.
But like doing the research for this, I was actually like genuinely surprised at how old unicorns are. And I'm sure you want to get into this.
Well, of course, I've got to, you know, talk about the Roman bit of it, because unsurprisingly to absolutely everyone, there is a mention of unicorns in Pliny the Elder's natural history, the Naturalis Historia. And for those who are not familiar with Pliny the Elder, he was this upstanding Roman citizen that enjoyed travelling places and moaning about it. And he put it all in a book because he catalogued everything. So like, what are you doing here? Oh no, I'm cataloguing. I'm just cataloguing this bit of grass and this flower and manuscripts that can fit in a nutshell. That's a story for another day. You know, apparently there's a copy of the Iliad out there. It's written in parchment so small that it can fit inside a nutshell. That's a thing. But yes, Pliny writes about the unicorn. He calls it the monoceros, which he allegedly saw in one of his trips to India. Now, in this description, you know, the unicorn looks quite a bit different from the way we picture it today. So it would have had a horse's body, elephant feet, a stag's head, and a boar's tail. All that, to top it all off, a single black 3-foot horn emerging from the middle of its forehead. Now, if you ask me, you just described yourself a rhino or a rhino-looking animal.
Yeah, either a rhino or like a real thick unicorn boy.
Yep. No, more likely a unicorn boy. Yep. Why not? Short line. Yep.
Yeah. Chunky unicorn boy.
Hashtag chunky unicorn boy.
We love to see it. But yeah, so what it sounds like is exactly a rhinoceros. And it's possible that it originated from really early sightings of the Indian rhinoceros, or maybe it was some other kind of ungulate or an antelope with only one horn. You know, there's lots of different things it could be. But yeah, no, it's really interesting that this is as early as it is, because personally, as someone who isn't from Britain, I've always associated unicorns with the kind of medieval period because it's such a popular motif in that period, specifically in like bestiaries and things like that. So it's kind of wild to see that it's actually that old.
Yeah, I guess, and me coming from also not Britain, I also pictured it as mainly a wonderful medieval creature that lives in bestiaries of the time.
And yet, no, it's apparently even older. I mean, there's even, depending on the translation that you have, it's apparently it's even in the Bible. So it's a pretty old cryptid. And one of the kind of things I wanted to mention when we're talking about unicorns is kind of the, zooarchaeological equivalent. And as Simona said, Pliny probably saw a rhinoceros, and that's what became the monoceros. Monoceros.
Like one horn.
Yeah. But there actually is kind of something referred to as the extinct unicorn or the extinct Siberian unicorn, which is an extinct megafauna that was originally assumed to be some kind of equine creature with a horn, basically a unicorn. It's called Elasmotherium sibericum, I think. Correct. Yeah. That's what that's me trying to pronounce the scientific name. So it was found in 2016 in Kazakhstan, and a closer examination of it made scientists realize that it's actually closer to a rhino or a woolly mammoth than a horse, and it's actually kind of changed our understanding of the megafauna's extinction. It used to be believed that it went extinct 350,000 years ago, but apparently it may have only gone extinct 29,000 years ago, which is a ginormous difference.
Do you feel like you're seeing that it's almost a trend lately, that sort of we're realizing that some of the Pleistocene megafauna went extinct much later than we thought we actually did?
Yeah, I guess it is. I don't know. Like, I think we've talked about it on this show before, but it's that weird thing when you get deeper into the past that like you start sandwiching a lot of the time together. And I don't know if it's because it's just so much time to like conceive of that we kind of just have to be like, oh, this 100,000 years is like one period or not. So it's hard to wrap my brain around it sometimes.
Yeah, I guess it might be also a case that now we've got much more reliable ways of actually taste. I mean, yes, the thing that you could eat mammoth at one point, I think we talked about in an earlier episode.
Yeah,
we have better ways of testing for the actual age of the remains.
So yeah, a lot of our stuff is a bit more precise. But yeah, no, it is wild to kind of think of the fact that if we include the Siberian unicorn, unicorns are actually hundreds of thousands of years older than we have thought. So yeah, no, unicorns, fun.
It's interesting. What did it say? So, like, because the remains were uncovered in 2016.
Yeah.
So the first theory was like straight to like an equine-looking animal. I was wondering, did the articles you consult say much about what was found? Was it just skeletal remains or partially mummified animals, as you would get in permafrost?
I can't remember, actually. I mean, based on where it was found, it wouldn't surprise me if it was bone and also some other kind of organic remains, because I mean, that's like the thing about that area of the world and the reason why we keep finding so much megafauna there that ends up giving us all these like really robust data is because the permafrost, really helps preserve a lot of the stuff that's necessary for kind of some of those more precise lab analyses.
Like here, where everything is so damp that it just decays into doom.
Yeah, it's, in Britain, where I'll find two gorgeous mandibles of a dog and a cat. And yet it's still not good enough to get ancient DNA done so that I could figure out if they're actually domesticated. It's fine. I'm not mad about it. It's fine.
Which is fine because in... say it doesn't apply to the entire country, of course, but because you have vast areas of the country that predominantly have heavy clay soils, they also tend to be quite acidic as well, which really doesn't help with fauna or human remains. Just bone, it's not very helpful.
Yeah, I get so jealous whenever I like look at the stuff that gets pulled out of like places like Siberia, because it's always so cool. I mean, like over the last maybe 3 years, we've had, some of the earliest dog remains come from that region. I think there was a horse kind of recently that basically had its hair, a lot of its hair still there. I
remember that.
Yeah.
And was it lion cub as well?
Yeah, I think so. But it's just like so well preserved, it makes me want to scream because it's not fair.
Please don't scream now. I'm wearing headphones.
Yeah, I won't. But yeah, no, it's absolutely wild how good the permafrost is, and if only we had permafrost here.
No, I'm in two minds about that.
Well, maybe we would actually have our own unicorn here.
Yeah, but then they'll mean me digging in permafrost.
That is true. Yeah, it wouldn't be me. Lab archaeologist, baby.
Yeah. And on that note, I shall go think things over. We'll take a break.
All right, we'll be back.
Chris Webster here for the Archaeology Podcast Network. We strive for high-quality interviews and content so you can find information on any topic in archaeology from around the world. One way we do that is by recording interviews with our hosts and guests located in many parts of the world all at once. We do that through the use of Zencastr. That's Zencastr. Zencastr allows us to record high-quality audio with no stress on the guest. Just send them a link to click on, and that's it. Zencastr does the rest. They even do automatic transcriptions. Check out the link in the show notes for 30% off your first 3 months, or go to zencastr.com and use the code ANIMALS. Looking to expand your knowledge of X-rays and imaging in the archaeology field? Then check out An Introduction to Paleoradiography, a short online course offering professional training for archaeologists and affiliated disciplines. Created by archaeologist, radiographer, and lecturer James Elliott, the content of this course is based upon his research and teaching experience in higher education. It is approved by the Chartered Institute for Archaeologists as 4 hours of training. That's in the UK, for those of you that don't know. So don't miss out on this exciting opportunity for professional and personal development. For more information on pricing and course structure, visit paleoimaging.com. That's PALEO imaging.com, and look for the link in the show notes to this episode.
And we are back with ArchaeoAnimals, and we are talking cryptozoology again. And now we are going to kind of go from, the European cryptids over to kind of more North America with Sasquatches.
Yeah, I guess the Sasquatch. I don't know, because you hear about Sasquatches and Bigfoot. And I mean, it seems like the Sasquatch is a bit of a catch-all term for just giant hominids. And then,
yeah, it is definitely. And there seems to be. Okay, so I actually didn't plan this at all, but we watched a video of someone going to one of the many Bigfoot museums in the United States last night, and the museum that they went to has this really big map, and they have like pinpricks up showing different like places around the country and then around the world where people have run into Sasquatches. So from my understanding of the accepted lore for people who, and there are people who research and attempt to catch Sasquatches, is like, yeah, it's kind of just like the term that they use.
Okay, so then a Bigfoot that is more sort of North American specifically. And then I guess you have similar sort of giant hominids that also there's lore for in other parts of the world. So like the Yeti is in a way similar to the Bigfoot. And I guess, is the Yeti also a Sasquatch?
I guess so. It seems to be originates from the Mete folklore, from pre-Buddhist folklore in the Himalayas. But yeah, I guess it's commonly referred to as a Sasquatch as well. I know that at the museum we were looking at last night, they include a bunch of stuff about the Yeti, I guess because in their eyes, they're kind of most likely from the same species. Or name not species, but from the same family at least.
So I guess so, like, just different adaptations in different climates.
Yeah, and there seems to be like different forms of Bigfoot throughout the United States as well. It's very complicated. I mean, there's a reason why there's people who like literally study this kind of stuff, at least in the States.
What I mean, we'd be intrigued to know as well is the origins of the term Sasquatch, because Bigfoot is pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
It's of course because it's got a big tail.
Yeah. Exactly.
But yeah, but I think the Bigfoot specifically then, it originates almost from a blending of different folklores across North America. So you seem to have sort of in there, you have a combination of the wild man myth that tends to be sort of European or something that the European settlers have brought to America, and then various other indigenous mythologies. To be fair, like the wild man, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a European myth per se, because you do tend to find it all around the world. I mean, you have mentions of sort of a wild man, even like in the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the wild man in capitals. I guess that would be a specifically sort of European mythos. But then even within Europe, you have different types. Because within within Europe itself, you get things that are similar to the wild man. Because you have, for instance, you get the Roman faun or the satyr in Greece, or the leshy in Slavic mythology, which I think we covered
in the Witcher episode, the video game episode. But yeah,
in the video game episode, because they adapted the leshy into the leshen. But then, of course, this was probably sort of came into contact with some of the mythologies that already existed before America was colonized. For instance, one that particularly came to mind when I was reading about Bigfoot is a folklore figure that's typical of the Algonquian-speaking First Nations. Mm-hmm. So a recurrent figure is the Wendigo, which I'm not sure if you've heard about.
I do love the folklore around the Wendigo.
Yeah, the Wendigo is just this malevolent supernatural entity that's basically just there to ruin your day.
Yeah, basically.
And the Wendigo can be humanoid in appearance, or can indeed possess a human and turn him monstrous looking. But I think one thing that particularly sort of in my mind brought it closer to Bigfoot is that you have in some other First Nation mythologies, the Wendigo is seen as a sort of a large humanoid, or like a giant man. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's like kind of that, archetype, I guess, of the quote unquote wild man. And I think what's also really interesting about the Sasquatch or Bigfoot is that I feel like it's one of the few cryptids that has a sort of, what's the word? Like a more grounded kind of basis, as such as people can say, like, I am an expert, I'm a scientist who studies these things, because a lot of modern day cryptozoologists like to say, oh, Bigfoot is the, quote unquote missing link. And they can like base it in the kind of like science we already have on, early ancestors of Homo sapiens. So it's really interesting to see it become this kind of like pseudoscience in a way that I think a lot of other cryptids don't necessarily like formalize into.
Yeah, I see it. Like, I think if Bigfoot was a species, I probably wouldn't go as far as calling it the missing link, or more like a case of divergent evolution. Mm-hmm. So that you have another species that sort of branched out and could still be around doing things, ruining people's days.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like out of all the cryptids, Bigfoot is the one that you could be like, and again, this is why that you have so many Sasquatch museums. I mean, in the US alone, there's at least 4 that can exist, because you can technically have these things and you can point to them and say, oh, no, this is proof of Bigfoot. So the museum that we saw in this video last night had casts of, supposed Bigfoot foot imprints, and there was even a butt imprint, which was amazing, and I loved it. But then you also they'll have casts of, different hominid species to put on display as well, to be like, well, this is where it would be like part of this family and stuff like that. So there's like a way you can kind of slip in actual science with the pseudoscience. I just find it really interesting. And again, maybe if things don't work out with my career, I'll just become a Bigfoot expert.
Why not?
It's not, I mean, at least then I'm making up stuff, and that's fun.
Yeah, but we don't have to waste any time referencing anything.
No, I mean, and that's the weirdest thing. And that was the thing I actually didn't know, because I obviously knew that, and I think you know as well, that cryptozoologists exists, and there's loads of conferences that happen about cryptozoology and stuff like that. I didn't realize that there were people who were trained and were based in physical anthropology who ended up becoming experts on Bigfoot. So the one that I found that's probably most famous is Grover Krantz, who I think some people, at least in the States, may know him as the guy who donated his body and his dog's body to the National Museum of Natural History in Washington, D.C. So when you go there, there's a display where it's his skeleton and his dog's skeleton. It's actually kind of cute. But apparently, yeah, he was a physical anthropologist who believed in the existence of Bigfoot.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, again, it's that kind of weird, I get where that's coming from in some ways, but yeah, so he basically used testimonials and casts of footprints to kind of determine, oh, this is a creature that was descended from Gigantopithecus, which was an ancient ape originally from Asia.
But very specific.
Yeah, and then that's the kind of thing where if, I could see someone reading that, especially as someone who's not necessarily based in the sciences, and they'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. But it's just really interesting to see someone from the kind of hard sciences already who's actually, yeah, this probably exists.
But to be fair, cryptozoology, it is in a way, it's a very interesting discipline. You do have people that get properly trained in it and are quite prolific, and that doesn't normally come with the assumption that these researchers believe in what they're researching, but it is still like a very sort of interesting subject because it blends in together like sort of biology and physical anthropology and mythology and folklore. It's really interesting, if anything, just going through the thought process or how these myths form.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, that's the aspect of cryptozoology that I think we both really enjoy, is kind of the thought process of, it is almost like doing archaeology in a way, in that you have this kind of like idea or like image that people like manifest of these creatures, and then you kind of have to walk backwards and figure out, where did they get this from? How did these pieces come together to morph into, like, say, the kind of version of Bigfoot that we all kind of think of when you say that to someone,
Yeah, like I find it fascinating personally. It's a bit like one that I guess we'll have to mention another time, but dragons.
Yeah, and that it's like something that exists in so many cultures, and kind of, even though there's some varieties in the way they're depicted, there's still like very commonalities.
Yeah, there's also something that sort of the base idea is the same worldwide, but then the way they're depicted, like in people's imaginary, of course, will depend a lot on the culture and other external factors.
It's so interesting and cool. And yet then we have Bigfoot, which everyone just kind of assumes is a big hairy guy. That could be anyone.
Yeah, but there's so much is so popular in pop culture, and there's been movies made about Bigfoot.
There's Harry and the Hendersons.
Oh, I've not heard of that.
It was it was like a sitcom that was on TV in the States, where it's about, I've never actually watched it because it looks terrible. Apologies out there to all the Harry and the Henderson super fans who are listening to the podcast and are offended by that. But it's about a family that like takes in a Bigfoot.
Okay.
who they name Harry, hence Harry and the Hendersons. It's very, I don't know, US TV went through a phase, didn't they, between that and like Alf and stuff.
Oh, I just found a 1987 fantasy comedy film.
I will say, though, anytime I think of Bigfoot, I immediately think of Harry from Harry and the Hendersons. It's a very distinct look.
Yeah, I guess he'll be a very sort of endearing Bigfoot, one you wouldn't mind inviting around for tea.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I find him endearing. I always found him kind of creepy. But I didn't really grow up with that. Because, yeah, no. Anyway, so...
It won an Oscar for Best Makeup.
It won an Oscar? I thought it was a TV show. Is it a film? Oh, my God.
There is also... there is a film, a 1987 American fantasy comedy film.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Wow.
I mean, like, kudos to them, because back in 1987, you had to do it all through makeup. There was no CGI thing to be making your life easier but pricier.
Yeah, I mean, it's like how they did the I forget the name of the film. I was going to say Zapruder film, but that's the film of JFK being assassinated. There is that famous film of Bigfoot walking, though. You know what I mean? Have you seen that?
I'm afraid not.
It's a really grainy, like, home video that was used as like, oh, it's proof that Bigfoot exists for ages.
Oh, wait, is that 60s footage?
Yeah. It's where he's like doing like, it's a very distinct walk he does that, like, I think a lot of things parody.
Yeah, no, I think I know the one you mentioned. I've not seen the video in itself. I think I was reading someone sort of trying to go through the video and the stills and trying to see how authentic it was.
Yeah, there's this whole thing of like how it was because of like the way that the person who is pretending to be the Bigfoot was walking. There's a whole thing of people trying to reproduce that, like the gait of the walking and stuff. It's absolutely bonkers, the kind of stuff that ends up being researched with Sasquatches in mind. And I do want to point out too, even though we have these kind of like people from anthropology like Krantz who have become or became Bigfoot experts, quote unquote. You have other anthropologists like David Dagling who are attempting to kind of disprove a lot of what they've done, because as fun as it is to talk about cryptozoology, you know, it does add authenticity to pseudoscientific beliefs, which can end up becoming, you know, very harmful things. So Dagling is a paleoanthropologist who basically looked at, I actually wrote down the name of the film, the Patterson film. That's the film that we were talking about. Apparently he's examined it, and he's been like, you know, the person's range of the size of the Bigfoot in that is within the variation of human size, and that you could easily replicate that weird walk. So, you know, it's fake. But I think they've also, someone's who like father was in that, like came out with stuff about it being fake. So, whoops.
Yeah, although one thing worth reiterating, I guess, that of course cryptozoologists or people that research cryptids will not necessarily believe in the stuff, because I guess like not there are some people that are actually producing some very interesting work on the subjects without going out of their way to prove that they've seen Bigfoot in the toilet of a diner.
As we all, you know, his natural habitat, of course. So I think as we ruminate on that image, we'll take another.
Next time you're in a diner and want to go to the toilet, be very afraid.
Well, I mean, to be honest, if you're using a diner toilet at like on the roadside in the States, yeah, I would be afraid.
I've not had the pleasure, so like...
Usually pretty gross. You would, one day Simona will make you experience the Great American Road Trip.
And she'll still make it about Romans somehow.
Oh, yeah. All right. Well, as we suss out the details of Simona's American Road Trip, we are going to take a break.
You may have heard my pitch for membership. It's a great idea and really helps out. However, you can also support us by picking up a fun t-shirt, sticker, or something from a large selection of items from our TeePublic store. Head over to arcpodnet.com/shop for a link. That's arcpodnet.com/shop to pick up some fun swag and support the show.
We're back now with not talking about Sasquatches anymore. Now we're talking about mermaids because, you know.
Why not?
Why not? Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, who doesn't like a mermaid? Who didn't want to be a mermaid? Although I guess this is... No, I mean, like, I was going to say, for me growing up with pools, which I've come to learn is a rarity in Britain, I always pretended to be a mermaid when I would go swimming in the pool.
No, I get that. Of course, having the sea in front of my house.
Yeah, I was going to say, you have the sea, and then, yeah.
And then just flat countryside.
Mermaids' favorite habitats, the sea and the flat countryside.
Not with that attitude.
True, that is true. But yeah, so just a brief, I don't know who needs to know exactly what a mermaid is, but it's basically any variation of a humanoid creature that lives underwater. Usually it's seen as a human top half and a fish bottom, although I'm sure that there are many different variations on that.
Yeah, because interestingly, that wasn't always the case of how like mermaids were imagined.
Yeah.
You find mermaids sort of in the folklore from all over the world, really. But sort of in Western mythology particularly, mermaids are derived from the Greek sirens, which were originally seen as half woman, half bird, which then became fish.
Which is really weird. And also, I mean, of course, I'm going to bring it to video games, but that also reminds me of the sirens in Witcher 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, because those are, they are, you know, kind of what we see as mermaids in that they are underwater, but they can fly up in the air, which is terrifying the first time you play that game.
Oh, yeah, they're really difficult at first. But then it might have been a siren that had fallen in the water and couldn't really fly anymore. And it was like, well, if life gives you lemons, and then just, speciation, just grew fish appendages.
It's like heartbeats were hard enough, especially if I was just like riding Roach down, Velen, and all of a sudden I've got these screeching little bird people flying at me and I have to pull out my crossbow and shoot them. But like, come on, I'm trying to sail a boat around Skellige and you have to interrupt me with these sirens.
That's just because everything in Skellige wants to murder you.
That is true. We do have an episode, for listeners, we do have an episode coming up that's going to be entirely on The Witcher now that I've finally finished the game. So look out for that.
Yeah, so now you know in advance, so you can skip it if you like.
Well, yeah, because now at this point, I've become incredibly invested in the lore. So I can be as annoying as I was on the Star Wars episode. So
DLCs and everything?
Oh, yeah. I did everything.
Ooh.
I did every single side quest because I have this sickness where I need to do every side quest in a video game, even if I don't like the video game, although I did like The Witcher 3, which is why I end up playing video games for like 6 months.
All right. So long as that is not going to make you start hoarding spoons or trying to sell mirrors to people, then everything will be okay.
Maybe. Anyway, yeah, so it seems to be the Greek sirens seem to be the origin for at least the Western conception of mermaids. There's also the belief that the mermaid myth probably began with really early sightings of manatees and dugongs, which, I mean, that's kind of just like the like a consistent theme in cryptozoology is how a lot of these creatures are just kind of people seeing these creatures for the first time. I mean, the other thing I always think about when I think of cryptozoology is the whole like people who came across elephant skulls for the first time, thinking that they were the skulls of Cyclops.
Yeah, but I think with manatees, I mean, you must have been lost at sea for a very long time to mistake a manatee for a woman.
A real thick girl. I mean, I've got a real manatee like body shape going on, so I can understand why someone would see a manatee and think that it was me as a mermaid.
I think your morphology may differ ever so slightly from that of a manatee. I don't mean to be pedantic.
I'm a big brown girl.
Sure.
That's the only way I describe manatees professionally. I point at them and I go, big round girl. Also, I just want to point out, just to kind of break the illusion here, folks, when we record these episodes, we have a bit of a chat running with our producer, and Tristan has just typed out #manateam. So if you want to send angry emails to the Archaeology Podcast Network demanding that he be fired for these awful jokes. I'm just saying. The people have to know. Tristan at archaeologypodcastnetwork.com if you want to send an angry email at him to stop making these jokes. He also doesn't get any emails, which isn't surprising given his whole personality and all the other stuff. Anyway, mermaids.
Yes.
I got my roasting out.
But not a proper roasting yet because you've not eaten.
Oh, no. But yeah. Oh yeah, kelpies. I haven't even thought about kelpies in relation to mermaids. Somewhat similar, yeah?
Yeah, I was just trying to look it up, but I keep getting pictures of a horse statue instead.
Well, I mean, that's what a kelpie is. It's like horse mermaid.
Oh, and a dog breeder as well, apparently.
Is it?
Australian kelpie.
That's weird.
It's also a dog. It's like a small to medium sized. It's pretty cute, but yeah, it's also it's a malevolent spirit. It's a horse and also a dog.
But yeah, no, kelpies are like they're obviously not exactly like mermaids, but it is interesting to think of that there's just this kind of persistent mythology of these half something, half fish, or at least water dwelling type of animal. I mean, there's the whole, I didn't write this down, so this is off the top of my noggin. The association of bulls and Poseidon and the sea as well in Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Just we love to throw an animal in water and call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you're not sure what you've just seen, think of the closest land mammal that it resembles and go with that. Just the sea version.
Yeah. Are you a creative person trying to create new creatures for your latest sci-fi or fantasy novel? Just take the nearest animal, chuck it into the sea, and there you go. Well, don't actually chuck an animal into the sea, because if they can't swim, they'll drown.
No, I want to see a great, like, sort of sci-fi thriller on a sea cucumber.
I mean, like,
the sea cucumbers were kind of integral to BioShock.
Oh yeah, they were. Oh my gosh.
Were they?
Yeah. It's kind of a premise that kind of underpins a lot of things happening in like the world of BioShock. So sea cucumbers actually have been done.
I've played all the games. I've completely missed that.
They're like slugs that they use.
Yeah, they're the ones that basically like fart in their enemy's face as a defense mechanism.
Yeah, but like in BioShock, that's what they use to create the like atom and for splicers and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's me still solidly in my rock, under my rock.
Hey, if it's anything BioShock related, I'm in there.
I mean, same. Like, BioShock is one of my favorite games of all time. So.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think of another one. I don't think goats get a lot of attention, really. Like,
in terms
like
of
a water goat.
Oh, water goat! No, that would be cool.
So like a Capricorn.
But you have goatman.
What's a goatman?
It's another. I'm pretty sure it's another American. Yes, it's a cryptid from Maryland. It's a creature that's half human and half goat.
Capricorns are half like goat, half fish thing. Just bringing out my astrology.
Yeah, I guess so.
Wow, Tristan being proven wrong. What a rare sight.
Yeah, no, the goatman was first spotted in Beltsville, Maryland. So it's this half man, half goat cryptid that carries an axe around.
Oh, fun.
So he's also out there to ruin your day, basically.
Obviously, I didn't know about that because no one thinks about Maryland.
Harsh.
I don't know. I've been to Maryland, and yeah.
I mean, it's not exactly Mothman, you know.
No, Mothman rules. Anyway, we were talking about mermaids, weren't we?
Not exactly Mothman, is it?
Oh man, but a mermaid Mothman, folks. We need someone like. There's been no fan art of this podcast, so if anyone wants to make the first ArchaeoAnimals fan art and draw a Mothman mermaid at ArchaeoAnimals on Twitter, let us know.
I'm not sure what it would look like osteologically, but it would be fabulous.
It would be funnier though if the fish part was the head and then the body of Mothman.
But then, what is the body of Mothman?
Usually it's because Mothman, at least from what I've seen, it's usually like a humanoid body, but it's got moth wings and a moth head.
You can think because in some narratives he's more humanoid than others. Because I think some of the ones where he's seen depicted more as a humanoid. They're the ones that usually go hand in hand with the conspiracy theories about the men in black and aliens, and this all sort of linked together. There's a whole thing going on of how like one sort of like warns them of something, and then the men in black appear and they try to erase their memories because an alien spaceship has fallen off somewhere.
I mean, whom among us who lives in the US at least haven't been mind wiped by the men in black? Nod your head.
Just a normal Saturday night.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, to be fair, as a New Yorker, that's where it takes place, just like everything else takes place, baby.
Yeah, if you go a little bit further south, you get the Jersey Devil. So,
yeah, like I said, Montauk Monster is my hometown rep, which I believe was supposed to originally be the story for Stranger Things. It was like slightly based on the Montauk Monster stuff.
What is the Montauk Monster? Like, what's it meant to look like?
It was basically this like weird body that washed up on Montauk, which is like the end of Long Island. And no one knew what it was. It was so weirdly like decomposed. You couldn't tell what animal it was. So there's this whole big thing of like, oh, it was washed up from like a local like army base, which is, again, that's kind of the Stranger Things thing. It was like failed experiments, things like that.
But that was a raccoon, surely. Didn't that end up being a raccoon, surely?
I think so. I feel like a lot of these things end up being raccoons.
I remember, or maybe a possum. I remember it potentially being a raccoon, because at the same time, he washed off and he looked monstrous. But then again, have you ever pictured like a shaved raccoon?
Exactly. I remember like the mouth, I remember, was very like canid looking from like the pictures I saw of it. But it's just fun. It's a fun thing. We all love to see it. Well, just me, maybe. But yeah, maybe in some ways that could have been a mermaid because it came from the ocean.
A mermaidoon. A raccoon mermaid.
Yeah, I guess. Also, I just realized, I feel like it's become, this is something that's probably been in like more recent stuff as a parody, but has there ever been a mermaid that's like, vertically half and half?
In what way? Sorry.
Like half of their body is more humanoid. So like the left half of it
split. Split
so like the left half of their body is like humanoid, and then the right half is like a porpoise. Listen, I'm asking the big questions here. I mean, it definitely exists, but I wonder if there was like some weirdo in like ancient Greece who was like, hey, what about a siren that was like on the left side was like a woman and then on the right side was like a fish?
And it sounds like something you'd find in a Lovecraftian novel.
That's probably a bit more. If we know anything about Lovecraft, other than that he's a huge racist, is that he loves fish people. So
just weird fish people and racism. That's Lovecraft in a nutshell, all right.
So I wanted to kind of round off the mermaid talk with just like one example of kind of the zooarchaeology mixing with cryptozoology with the Fiji mermaid, which is probably one of the most famous fake taxidermies out there. It's found in oddity and curiosity museums around the world. It was originally a hoax created by P.T. Barnum. It was displayed in Barnum shows and caused a huge frenzy for these quote-unquote mermaids in the mid-1800s. And eventually it was found out that it was basically just a mummified monkey attached to a fishtail. But lots of replicas now exist in loads of collections like Ripley's Believe It or Not. One of my favorites is is an alligator variation of the Fiji mermaid. They're amazing and great. And it's a nice combination of zooarchaeology and archaeology coming together in some ways.
Yay!
Yay!
Mermaid.
if anyone wants to make a cryptid out of taxidermy and send it to me, please DM me on Twitter. I would love to have one of those in my house.
Or just like,
saying.
or a Fiji mermaid plush toy.
No, I want like a mummified monkey taped to a fish.
Okay, well, you can have that. I'd have the plush. I'd have the plush of the soft toy.
Fair enough. All right. I think that's a good place to wrap it up for this episode. As always, you can find us on Twitter at ArchaeoAnimals. Tell your friends about this podcast, stuff like that. Subscribe and rate.
And tell them to email Tristan at archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Yeah. Please stop. Hashtag stop the jokes because they're not funny.
Hashtag please tell everybody how much I contribute
That's too
to
long
this show.
of a hashtag. That's not what you're supposed to use hashtags for. Ugh.
Hashtag Team Tristan. I love it. Hashtag Team Tristan. Hashtag Team Pun. Hashtag ArchaeoAnimals.
Well, we turn into Twilight now.
I quit this podcast.
Thank you for listening to ArchaeoAnimals. Please subscribe and rate the podcast wherever you get your podcast from. You can find us on Twitter at ArchaeoAnimals. Also, the views expressed on the podcast are those of ourselves, the hosts and guests, and do not necessarily represent those of our institution, employers, and the Archaeology Podcast Network. Thanks for listening.
This show is produced and recorded by the Archaeology Podcast Network, Chris Webster and Tristan Boyle, in Reno, Nevada, at the Reno Collective.
This has been a presentation of the Archaeology Podcast Network. Visit us on the web for show notes and other podcasts at www.archpodnet.com. Contact us at chris@archaeologypodcastnetwork.com.
Thanks again for listening to this episode and for supporting the Archaeology Podcast Network. If you want these shows to keep going, consider becoming a member for just $7.99 US a month. That's cheaper than a venti quad eggnog latte. Go to archpodnet.com/members for more info.